In this video, I'm going to teach you how to create a histogram. A histogram looks a lot like a bar graph, but there are two big differences. In a bar graph, the bars represent categories. That's what we call qualitative data. In a histogram, the bars represent quantitative data, where they're not categorical like favorite season or favorite movie or favorite dinner. Instead, it's numerical values. So that's one of the big differences. Because of that difference, you'll also note that in a histogram, the bars will touch each other because, again, they're not separate categories along the x-axis, but rather numerical. How you create a histogram is first you create a frequency distribution. If you watched my previous video for today's lessons, you'll notice this is the same frequency distribution that I found about the basketball player over the 20-game season and the different points that they scored. So they had 7 games where they scored between 0 and 4 points, 4 games between 5 and 9 points, so on and so forth. The next step is to create values for the x-axis. Now, the x-axis is going to represent number of points scored. So we're going to do points scored down here. Make sure I can spell. And we're going to mark this off. We'll go probably 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 seems appropriate. And then the tally is going to represent how many games there were in that window of 0 to 4 points, 5 to 9 points, so on and so forth. For the y-axis, we need to determine the tick marks. Our lowest number of tick marks is 2 and our highest is 7, so we can probably just count by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Between 0 and 4 points were scored 7 times, so from 0 all the way to 4. Now, because 5 is where the next one starts, we're actually going to go all the way up to 5, which is going to seem a little bit silly, but we're going to go all the way across here to 5, because that includes any points from 0 all the way up to 5. Obviously, you can't score half points in basketball, so that's how we account for that. The next category starts at 5 and goes all the way through 9, and there are 4 of those. So we'll go 4 high, come across, and again, we're not going to stop at 9 because there's going to be this weird gap between 9 and 10. There are technically no points that can be scored between 9 and 10, just like there's no points that can be scored between 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 because there's no fractional points. So we go all the way up until the next category starts. The next category starts at 10, so this represents from 5 all the way up to 10. So anything less than 10 in basketball, the only points you can score less than 10 would be 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5, so on and so forth. The next one's from 10 to 14, and there are 4, so then we have another bar the same height. And then from 15 to 19, we only have 3, so we'll drop down 1. And we'll cut across just like this. And then only 2 in the last category, so we will do this. All right, we are missing, number of games. So the height of each of these bars represents how many games they scored that category of points, if you will, that category being a numerical high and low value. And then we need a title. So points scored, that's twice I did that, during the season, because this was obviously 20 games, which is an entire season. Notice again the bars touching. Notice again the bars representing numerical intervals as opposed to representing categories. The last thing I want to state just one more time is that first you would make this frequency distribution, then from the frequency distribution you would create the histogram.